All right, we can go ahead and get started. So today's session is going to be on optimizing your climate job search. I'm going to give you a little bit more context on how to make your job search a little bit different when you're focusing on climate versus just a general job search. So we can go ahead. Could you go to the next slide, Wes? Perfect. So my name is Natalie Lavery, and I am the marketing lead at Climate People. I'll get into a little bit more about who Climate People is, but just wanted to start with a little bit of my climate story to give you some inspiration for how you can kickstart your climate job search. So my background is in environmental advocacy, and I always viewed my profession on one side and my passion for outdoors and the environment on the other side. I started my career in marketing, but didn't have a focus on climate or the environment at all. And I always felt like I wasn't fulfilling that passion of mine. So when I started job searching around 2.5 years ago, I came across a climate tech recruitment agency and a post for a climate tech recruiter. And at that point, I didn't know that there was even enough of a demand to have a recruitment agency that was solely dedicated to climate. And that really piqued my interest. So I reached out and had a conversation with our founder, Brendan. And then, we ended up creating my position, and here I am today. So wanted to share that story to serve as a little bit of inspiration for staying dedicated to your job search. And I know it can be a demoralizing process, but really sticking to it. And I guarantee that it will lead into a climate job. So next, I want to just give you a little bit of context on Climate People and who we are. Climate People is a climate tech recruitment agency that's dedicated to decarbonizing the economy through placing mission-driven talent into climate tech careers. We focus on all climate sectors. So we have jobs in industry and manufacturing, transportation and mobility, energy and grid, food and agriculture, built environment, carbon solutions, and climate systems. And we hire for a wide range of positions across all of those climate sectors. Climate People's core mission is to mobilize a workforce transition to get more people working in climate. So that's our sole goal, is getting more of you working in this space. So thank you again for being here today and wanting to use your career to help combat some of the negative implications of climate change. Climate People's 4 core pillars are impact, optimism, diversity, and urgency. Impact just strictly means that we are driven by impact. We want to mitigate the harms of climate change in everything that we do. Optimism is that while we do know that climate change is as bad as it really is, we do believe that our customers and all of you are really creating the solutions to combat some of this harm. So we're optimistic in that fact. Diversity, you can't even begin to address any of these harms without accounting for all voices and ensuring that there are diverse people and voices in this space. And then last is urgency. While we are optimistic, we really do believe that time is of the essence and we have to act quick to combat some of these harms. So just a quick little synopsis of what we're going to be covering today is, up first, we are going to do a deep dive, a quick little 5-minute deep dive into the climate industry, followed by 5 steps to landing a climate job. In this step, I'm going to give you tangible advice and true takeaways so that you can kickstart your climate jobs journey with some actionable advice. And then last, we're going to do a 30-minute interactive, or as interactive as we can get with this large of a crowd, LinkedIn workshop, so that you can leave today and optimize your LinkedIn so that recruiters and hiring managers are coming to you and it's not just you reaching out to them. So here we can see this is just a quick little synopsis of the climate industry where we are today. This bell curve is the 5 stages of adoption. So with any technological advancement, you have these 5 different phases. So you have the innovators, the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. You can see this little green arrow here. That's currently where climate is today. We are in this early adopters phase, which means that climate founders and employees are like us. They're like you and me. We are all seeking out climate specific roles and information, and we're innately passionate about this space. So yeah, that's where we are today. And Climate People likes to classify our job seekers into 4 different personas. So we have persona 1, which is climate motivated. These people are 100% motivated by working on climate. They come in and they know exactly which sector they want to work in, they know which job they want to work in, and they really have been invested in this space for a while. And then next we have persona 2. These people are climate focused, so they know that they want to work in climate, but they're flexible about exactly how that's going to look for them. So maybe they know they want to be in climate, but they don't care if their job's in the food and ag sector or the energy and grid sector. And then next we have driven by impact. These people are just strictly socially and mission driven. They know that at the end of the day, they want to close their laptop and feel good about the work that they're doing, but it doesn't have to be in climate. It could be in healthcare or in any other mission driven field. And then last, we have job oriented. These people plain and simply want a job. They don't care if this job has a mission that they care about. They simply want that paycheck and they want to take that home, and that's all that they really care about. So the context for all of this is for job seekers. On that bell curve, we can see that the majority of the people fall slightly straight in the middle or slightly to the right. They are mission and socially driven, but it's not necessarily about climate. And similarly, climate companies, especially the climate companies that Climate People is working with, they're prioritizing mission. They're turning away candidates who have exceptional tech skills if they aren't aligning from a climate perspective. So what does this mean for all of you? This means that we need millions of people working in climate solutions to address some of the harms of climate change. And climate companies are plain and simply limiting themselves by requiring that strict climate experience. And job seekers oftentimes are unaware of climate jobs. It's not to say that they don't want to work a climate job. It's just plain and simply they don't know that they're out there. So they're not optimizing their search for climate, which is in turn hurting them as well. So in response to all of this, Climate People conducted a survey where we interviewed 554 people and asked them what was preventing them from taking a job in climate. These are a few of the survey demographics. We don't have to get into the nitty-gritty about it, but we'll send a link so that you can check it out for yourself. But the next slide is the key that I really want to get into from all of this. So from that survey, these are our top 3 considerations or lessons that we pulled from the results. And I want you to take a mental note of these 3 lessons and really use them as the North Star of your search and really implement them now before you start job searching, while you're job searching, and then honestly, after you have a climate job, because they are so important. And so I'm going to reiterate them countless times today. But the first is to not disqualify yourself. So as we saw, climate companies oftentimes are prioritizing climate experience. However, Terra.do, a climate education platform who's been behind a lot of the sessions this week, predicts that we need 100 million people working in this space by 2030 to address the demands of climate crisis. That's 100 million people. And 100 million people are not going to have climate experience. So they're going to hire people who don't have climate experience. So don't disqualify yourself, because if you show your passion, they'll oftentimes still work with you. Second, feeds directly into the first, and it's knowing the ins and the outs of this industry. As we said, again, climate companies are prioritizing candidates that align with their mission. So make sure you align with their mission if you want to stand out from all of the other applicants. You can do this through doing your homework and understanding as much about the industry as possible. I'd recommend using climate-specific resources. So use Climate People, use ClimateBase, use MCJ, Terra.do, Work on Climate. The list goes on, but make sure you're using them because they're out there to help you. And then third is don't be your own worst critic. Our survey responses show a disconnect between how people view other people's roles in the industry and then how they view their own. So don't let imposter syndrome dictate your search. So just to provide an example of that. So if I was a marketing professional in this space, I would be like, oh, marketing professionals don't belong in climate. That's only for scientists and environmentalists. However, if I were to see another marketing professional excelling, I would be like, oh yes, that's great. But me not seeing it for myself, that's imposter syndrome and will really detriment my search. So make sure you don't do that. Awesome. So quickly getting into the next step here, I'm going to provide the 5 steps for landing a climate tech role. I'm going to go through each of these 5 steps in depth and provide examples and just a little bit more context. But the 5 steps for landing a climate tech role, or just a climate role in general, are discovering the possibilities, doing your research, updating your LinkedIn resume and cover letter, networking, and then applying for jobs. Awesome. So starting with the discovering the possibilities. The key here is to really lay the foundation for your job search. So whether you're an experienced engineering leader with 15 years of experience or a recent coding bootcamp graduate, the job search is one and the same at this point in the process. So if you're looking for a job, experienced or not, you have to go back to the basics and work backwards. So that just means before you update your resume, before you're crafting your cover letter, and way before you're even thinking about applying for jobs, you have to get to know yourself. And by that, I mean defining a why statement. I encourage you to think of your why statement as like a thesis statement on an essay. So if you're writing an essay, in that very first paragraph, you're going to have a 1 to 2 sentence statement that says exactly what your intentions in that essay are. It's really similar for your job search. So at the forefront of your resume, your LinkedIn, and your cover letter, you need to have a why statement. And this why statement is why you're interested in the industry, why you like the company, and why you're different. Climate People averages over 800 applications for every single job that we post. Quite frankly, we don't have the time to go through and take a deep look at every single application. And I know that seems really unfair, but that's just kind of the reality of the situation. And so we need for you to catch our eye in the very beginning. And this why statement is a great way to do that. The next step that you really have to do here to discover the possibilities of your job search is to do an in-depth self-evaluation. This self-evaluation is going to be where you analyze your strengths and your weaknesses. So the key here is to use your strengths as the driver of your search and really don't dwell on your weaknesses. They mean nothing to you at this point. So let's put an example here. So if you were looking at a job and there's 5 qualifications on this job posting, maybe you have 3 of them. You'll be going down the list and saying, yes, I have that. Yes, I have this. Yes, I have that. But the last 2, you're going to say, no, I don't have those. And then maybe you just abandon that job position or that job application because you don't have those last 2 skills. Rather than doing that, you should think about it on its head. So think of the person posting that job. The person who's posting that job is going through their absolutely perfect, ideal, honestly, a unicorn candidate, and they're listing all of the skills that they would absolutely love for them to have, knowing that they likely won't have them all. So if you disqualify yourself, they're losing out on a great candidate, and then you're losing out on a job. So again, make sure you're using your strengths as your driver and really focus on what you're good at and being able to sell that and not really caring about what you're not good at. Next, you have to really be honest with yourself about what you want in your next role. This goes for technical skills and soft skills. Ask yourself some questions like, is a startup environment what I'm looking for? Is the company working on a cause that I find meaningful? What size team do I want to work with? How do I feel about people management? The list kind of like goes on, but really understand exactly what you want so that you can narrow down your search and don't feel inundated with 100 different applications. Last, you should look at similar roles and really pinpoint that interest and ask yourself those same questions I just touched on. Awesome. So next is the research phase. This ties back into everything I was just touching on with the overview of the industry. We know at this point that climate companies really want people who have mission alignment. So you're going to be doing yourself a disservice if you don't preach that mission alignment. So here's your opportunity to really sell that mission alignment that you are going to accumulate in this step. So dive in head first. You really should just put yourself out there and learn as much as humanly possible. I encourage you to join online communities like Work on Climate, MCJ, Air Miners. There's hundreds. Once you join one, you'll be able to find lots of others and really just Join them, but don't just join them, be interactive in those communities. It's kind of like anything. If you just join it and don't put anything into it, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're going to get out what you put in. Next, I encourage you to listen to podcasts. Again, there's so many out there that are incredible. Find the ones that you resonate with and listen to them on a regular basis. Some of my favorites are The Net Zero Life, How to Save a Planet, Catalyst. Of course, the list goes on. Next is subscribe to newsletters. I like newsletters because not only are the hiring managers expecting you to be well-versed in the space, they're expecting you to be up to date with all of the recent advancements. And newsletters are a great way to do that. I wake up every morning to 5 or so climate newsletters that I read every single day. So then I am versed with the most up-to-date and recent news, and I can talk to that. And if you're job searching, that's going to be essential to impress the hiring managers. So yeah, that's that phase. Really just put yourself out there and learn as much as you can. The third step is going to be the meat of this conversation, honestly. And there's so much that we can dive into here, and we're just going to brush the surface. So don't write this off as all that you need to do, but really, really, really focus on this step and use external resources. I can provide some of my favorite at the end. So this step is really about selling your skills and your passion. Your resume, it's the deciding factor as to whether or not you will get a job. It is the first thing any hiring manager sees, and it needs to catch their eyes. Again, calling to that stat that I mentioned earlier, Climate People gets over 800 applications for every job that we post. And we're only looking at the resumes at first. So in order to get that interview, where it's a lot easier to impress people, you have to have that stellar resume in order to catch their eyes. So again, in today's competitive job market, it's really flipped from being a candidate market to a market that favors employers. And your resume is going to be that critical piece to making sure that you get that interview, let alone a job. So again, you have to stand out from the get-go. And you can do this through making sure your resume is clear, concise, and optimized to be filtered through an applicant tracking system. I'm going to say it again. People get inundated with applications. So they're getting thousands and thousands of applications, and no human has enough time to go through every single one of those applications. So they're filtering them all through an applicant tracking system. And that applicant tracking system is flagging different keywords that you have on your resume and connecting that to jobs. So if you don't have those keywords, the applicant tracking system is going to go over your resume and you're not going to have a shot. So I'm going to call to the importance of keywords here, and then we're going to get into that really, really in depth during the LinkedIn portion of this talk. But just remember, you need keywords. So the first step for your resume, though, is to cut the fluff. I encourage you to keep your resume short and sweet. There's no reason that your resume needs to be over 1 page in length. So keep it under 1 page. And that fluff also refers to distracting colors and visuals. Keep it simple. The second is to demonstrate your career progression. So again, I know that it can be a little bit hard to keep your resume under 1 page if you have a lot of years of experience. So rather than calling out every single job that you've worked, you can just show your career progression, because I would argue that it's more important to have a short resume than to highlight all of those random little jobs that maybe don't add a ton of value. A third, we've already touched on this, so we'll save it for a little bit later, but make sure you've done your keyword research. Fourth is quantifiable impact statements. So on the experience section of your resume, you don't just want to say that you did something, you want to show exactly how you did it. And that's where you're going to use a quantifiable impact statement. So you'll say, for example, at Climate People, I was a marketing lead and I was in charge of paid search to our website. And I increased paid search by X percentage. That way I'm saying my job was paid search and I actually did it with this tangible number. And then last, your resume is not a one-size-fits-all model. You should not be submitting the same application or the same resume with every application that you submit. That's not putting the effort that you need to put into your resume into it. So make sure you're updating that why statement that we touched on in 2 slides ago and including that on every single one of your resumes. I understand that this is a huge time suck. So if you don't have the time to update your resume for every job that you're applying for, Make sure that you're at least updating your resume for every job category that you're applying to. Right, so the next, and honestly, my favorite and the most important, is to network. I know everyone always says to network, but that's because it's true and it's proven to work. 70% of jobs aren't published publicly. So let that just sink in for a second. 70% of all jobs out there are never published. That means that 70% of people knew someone and are getting that job before it even goes out to the general public. And 80% of jobs are filled through connections. So even if they're published, 80% of them are getting filled through someone they know. So you have to know people. And I would argue that this is especially true in the climate space. Climate is a relatively new industry, and people are excited to meet other people and they want to share their innovations and what they're working on. And it's a small space, so people know each other. So all of this to say is networking is important. However, I do want to recognize that this isn't a natural skill set for everyone, and that's okay. Like, even if it's not your natural skill set, if you're more of an introvert, you should still reach out. And if you have a dedicated plan and a formula that you follow, it'll make it a lot easier. The hardest step of anything is starting. So I encourage you just to start, get over the uncomfortableness of it all, and just put yourself out there. So here are my top 5 tips for networking. The first is to curb your expectations. You should go into this not expecting to get a job. Your main goal should be to make genuine connections. I know it's counterintuitive since we're all here today learning how to get a job in this space, but people can see through your intentions. And if you go in with the intention of making a genuine connection, that's going to be more likely to lead to a job than going in with the mentality of trying to make a job. Second is to ensure that you're prepared for the conversation. If you reach out to someone to have a networking conversation with them, make sure you know what they do. Make sure you know a little bit on their background and you're ready to have that conversation. I encourage you to think of it as a symbiotic relationship too. Don't just say, oh, I admire this person, I want to have a conversation with them so that I can learn from them. You should also see what you can offer them, and that's also going to be more likely to lead you to a job. So for example, rather than just saying, hello, I saw your job on your website and I would love to learn more, you could say, hello, I love your company for this reason, and I would love to learn more about this while offering you this, and they'll be 10 times more likely to want to talk to you. Third step is to network before you need it. Again, your whole purpose of networking is not to lend to a job. It's to make a community of people on your side. So even when you're not job searching, you should be networking. It's a process to create that community of people. So continue to do it even when you have a job that you're very happy in. Fourth is persistence is key. People are busy, busyness ebbs and flows, and it's not an attack on you if someone doesn't respond. Follow up, remain optimistic, and continue to reach out to people. Don't get demoralized. I know it's easier to say don't get demoralized than it is done, but make sure you just remain persistent, and I promise it will work out. And then last, leverage your connections. You don't have to start from zero. Go through your current connections on LinkedIn or people that you have connections with and ask for referrals. It's so much easier to start a networking conversation when you have someone introducing you rather than you just reaching out blankly. And on that same vein of thought, if you're going to reach out to someone, make sure you try to find a connection between them and you. It can be as simple as we both care about this climate issue, or we went to the same school, or we're part of the same group. Make sure that you have something to leverage your connection asks with. Awesome. So the next step is to apply for jobs. The process does not end here. Quite frankly, the process starts here. Applying for jobs is not the end all be all. If you solely submit applications, it's likely not going to end in a job. Like I said, and I'll repeat for the third time, Climate People gets over 800 applications for every single job that we're posting. So you have to find another way to stand out. And a great way to do that is by following up. But if you're going to follow up, you need to do it correctly. 3 tips following up is make sure you time it right. You should send your follow-up 2 to 3 days after you submit your application. In that follow-up email or that LinkedIn message, you should make it very specific. Oftentimes companies, especially recruitment agencies, have hundreds or maybe dozens of jobs that they have posted. And if you just say, hi, I submitted my application, we're going to have no idea which job you're talking about. So make sure you call to the job that you applied to in the subject line of that message. Third, make it personal. Don't just act like it's a robot on the other side of that email, because it's a person. And if you have a good connection to them and tie that climate piece in or something that you can relate to, they're going to feel that and want to make an effort to respond to you. And again, numbers, show your impact, show the impact that you can make, and don't just say it, show exactly how you can do it. So another key point on this applying for jobs piece and the following up piece is the fact that a lot of people are disqualifying themselves. As we saw in that lesson number 3 in the very beginning, people have imposter syndrome and they're not selling themselves to the extent that they should be in order to get a job. So much of job searching is being able to sell yourself. Honestly, that's the number one piece of applications and applying for jobs and interview is your ability to talk about your experiences and be able to sell them to someone else. So we've found some data from Adzuna, which is a resume service. And this showed that women only submit 31% of resumes to its website, while men submit 69%. Similarly, women don't promote their soft skills like time management and leadership, and they also leave out significant professional achievements. So this study shows that men are far more likely to actually submit their resume than women. Don't let that be the case. Again, you have to be able to sell yourself. Another study that we found shows that this study is from LinkedIn, found that women are also more selective about the jobs that they apply for than men. The study discovered that men and women displayed similar habits when browsing for jobs, but women were 14% less likely to apply to it after viewing it. So again, make sure you're really applying for that job and you're not holding yourself back. This reigns especially true for climate because it's a new industry. People don't have this experience. And if you're going to undersell yourself, it's not going to work out for you in the long run. So that is that for applying for jobs. And quickly, we can jump in to this. This is a screenshot that I pulled from LinkedIn. Megan Murphy is a climate recruiter at a climate company. And these are for a few of her posts that I think reign especially true. So this first one says, as we transition from a hiring environment that favors candidates to one that favors employees, job seekers will have to do more to stand out. Here are some ways to do that. Update your LinkedIn profile with details. Use your LinkedIn as a digital resume. Fill out the application questions, even the ones that aren't required. Really go above and beyond. Third, do your research on the company prior to the interview. You can no longer show up with no prior knowledge and expect it to make it to the interview. Fourth is ask real questions the interviewer that you want to know the answers to. Tell me about the company culture is flat. Make sure you're actually investing in the interview if you want to get something out of it. Next one that I screenshotted is, you can head to the next slide, Wes, is as a recruiter, I get a lot of in-mails from job seekers. It's interesting to me how people choose to make their first impression. Here's what I like to see. First, information on the specific role that you're looking for. 2, confirmation that you've already applied. And 3, a specific ask. You'll get bonus points in her book if you share why you're specifically excited about her company, or 2, if you find something on her profile that you can relate to. So again, kind of just bringing everything we touched on earlier to life here from the lens of a real climate recruiter. These things really do matter. Alrighty, so this is just a reminder here to remain optimistic because the climate job search is not your traditional job search. I know firsthand how demoralizing job searching can be, but you really have to do your part to not let it get you down. Everyone in the climate space wants to help. We all know that the more people we have in this space, the better and the brighter all of our futures will be. As I touched on earlier, it's projected that we need 100 million people working in this space. That's a lot of people. So that means a lot of jobs, and you really do have a good shot. If you use your why as your North Star of your search and just really reflect on why you want that job and why you're here, I promise it will help you remain optimistic throughout this all. And one last piece is that rejections are inevitable. You're going to get rejected. Everyone gets rejected in this space in any job search. But if you view that rejection as a stepping stone that's going to lead to your dream climate job, it'll be a lot easier to take in. Awesome. So we have wrapped up our 5 tangible advice for getting a job in the climate. And now we're going to move into our semi-interactive LinkedIn workshop. As interactive as we can be with 430 people in the audience. So I encourage you to take notes of a lot of the things that I say. I'll also share out this PowerPoint so that you can have it. But the key that we're going to go over here is the fact that if you do these things to your LinkedIn, you will have hiring managers and recruiters reaching out to you. It'll be a two-way funnel rather than you strictly having to exert all of your efforts to constantly reach out to people. It's kind of nice. It's like a reward when you get a message from a recruiter. So we're going to cover the 8 keys to making your LinkedIn stand out from the rest. We'll start with 4 basic tips that are straight from LinkedIn. They're telling us what to do. 2 mistakes to avoid that a lot of people make, but we'll make sure that we're not going to do those. And then 2 keys to help you get discovered. So with that, we can go ahead and dive in. First is no blank spaces. Make sure you have completed your entire profile. This sounds very obvious, but you would be quite amazed at how many profiles I see that are not filled out in the slightest. If you filled out your entire profile, you'll have this little star in the top right-hand corner that says All-Star. How cute is that? You'll be an all-star. No, I'm being serious though. Make sure you have that all-star status because it's really important in the bigger theme of things. Awesome. Next. Picture this. Make sure you have a profile image. Your profile image should be personal and it also should be professionals. So LinkedIn, the way it works, when you have a LinkedIn, you can have various different platforms on LinkedIn. The highest one is called LinkedIn Recruiter. And that lets you search for all people in LinkedIn applying various filters, and then you can directly message them. The average LinkedIn Recruiter seat allows you to send 100 messages per month. So say I send 100 messages and I get 50 responses, I would still have 50 credits because if I get a response, that credit cancels itself out. So I'm going to only want to send messages to people that I think are going to respond. So then I don't waste my credits. So with that in mind, you can have a setting on your LinkedIn search that disqualifies people who don't have a profile picture, because their LinkedIn studies have proven that people who don't have a profile picture are far less likely to respond. I know there are some privacy concerns with this, but I just want you to consider that and make your own decision based on whether or not you would like a photo. I know you can also edit your settings to be like, I only want first connections or third connections to see my profile. So play with that and make an informed decision based off the fact that you could be eliminated from searches if you don't have a photo. So here's an example of a tool that integrates with LinkedIn that you can use to search. And these different toggles over here let you eliminate people from your search. So you can see that second green one down there shows skip if the profile photo is blank. So it's true, I promise. Alrighty, next is to keep your options open. On your profile, underneath your photo, there's a little option that shows I'd like to, or job preferences or work preferences or something like that. You can click that and show recruiters that you're looking for a job. So even if you currently have a job and you don't want your employer to know, you can still do that because there's an option in that setting that says you can have all LinkedIn members click on it, or you can only have recruiters see that. So I would recommend, if you're looking for a job, to have this available because recruiters can search by people who are looking for jobs. Again, this is not 100% foolproof. Your employer may be able to find out, even if you don't have, even if you click recruiters only, it will, let me backtrack a little bit. If you click recruiters only, in every company has like a unique ID on LinkedIn. So for example, Climate People's LinkedIn ID could be 123. And if I put open to work and Brendan, our founder, were to go into LinkedIn Recruiter, with his same unique ID, his profile would be connected to 123 as well. He would not be able to see that I was looking for a job. So it would eliminate him from seeing me, but there's always workarounds to this and they might be able to see it, but I would recommend doing it because I would argue that it is worth it because they will likely not see it. Another thing here in this availability option, you can add your job preferences. So you can have the top 5 job titles that you would like to hear about, locations, remote work, all of that. Make sure you have this filled out to the extent that you would like. Next step is to be active. I know I touched on this earlier with being a part of climate communities. This is the same. You can't just have a LinkedIn profile and expect for it to take off. You have to actively engage with companies, founders, thought leaders, and peers in the industry. So make sure you're networking, you're liking posts, you're commenting on them, you're doing all of that. So again, just to recap, the 2 things that recruiters are thinking about is number 1, that you're open to work. So if you have that open to work feature, you're likely to get a message. And the second is how likely you are to respond. The profile picture goes into that. Then also being active is huge for that as well. If you're active on LinkedIn, you're going to be marketed as more likely to respond. So therefore, you're more likely to get more messages. Awesome. So these are the 2 mistakes. Don't be this person. But I also want to preface with most people are this person. So don't worry if it's you. I'm going to show you how to remedy it. Mistake number 1 is using LinkedIn's default headline. It's a really easy mistake to make because literally when you create a LinkedIn profile, it sets you up for failure in this regard. So remember, the key here is to want to set yourself apart. If you're following the same headline formula as everyone else, you're not going to be set apart from the crowd. So honestly, only mentioning your title does nothing to sell your value or differentiate you from the competition. So as you can see in this picture, everyone has software engineer at Goldman Sachs, software engineer at whatever, and it goes on. You don't want to do that. You don't just want to put your job title because that doesn't sell your value in any way, shape, or form. Awesome. Mistake number 2 is saying that you're seeking opportunities, looking for new opportunities, or currently unemployed. Again, the key here is to sell yourself, and you're using valuable space. For a LinkedIn headline, you have 120 characters to sell yourself. If you say, I'm looking for new opportunities, that's unfortunately not selling yourself. It's kind of doing the opposite. So you want to use this space to put something compelling, and it's a little bit more invigorating than seeking new opportunities. Rather, you should really use that open to work feature that we just discussed to tell people that you're looking for opportunities. That way it tells them on the back end rather than solely using that to market yourself. Alrighty, so these are the 2 keys to getting discovered. You want to be this person. Alrighty, so how you're going to get discovered. Your 2 keys are to build a great headline and then optimize your skills tags on your profile. We're going to dive into how to do those now. For building your headline, there are 2 keys to this. You want to have a keyword filled overview, and then you also want to illustrate your value and stand out. So your keyword filled overview is going to be 3 to 8 phrases or words that match what the employees or the employers are looking for. And then your illustrating value and stand out, you want to have those quantifiable impact statements that we touched on earlier. All right, so how do you do it? Again, you have to get discovered. The recruiter is going to look at your name and your headline for about 5 seconds. If you don't catch their eyes in that 5 seconds, they're going to scroll right past your profile. So think of LinkedIn as a search engine, just like Google. So if you were to type anything into LinkedIn, it's going to populate the top results, just like Google does. Recruiters are using keywords and putting those keywords into the search engine of LinkedIn to find the candidates that they want for their job. So for example, if I was looking to hire a product manager in climate, I would go into my LinkedIn search profile and I would type in product manager and climate. So though in this case, product manager and climate are my keywords. People that have those keywords in their headline are going to be the first to show up for me in my search. So as if you go to the next slide, we can see this in real time. I typed in product manager and climate, and you can see here the top 4 results all have the words product manager and climate in their headlines. So they're showing up first, and they're going to be the first ones that I notice. All right, so next is, how do you find those keywords that you want to have on your profile? The first is through your headline. So again, as we touched on, your headline is essential for your profile to show up in searches. Unlike a resume, you can't tailor your LinkedIn profile for every role that you're applying to. So it needs to be set up to encapsulate a wide range of opportunities without being too general. So the good news is I have a formula for you, and we will get into that now. So the first step to building this headline is to go to a job board. You can go to any job board that you please. I have a screenshot of LinkedIn in here, but you can go to ClimateBase, you can go to like Climate People, you can go to LinkedIn, any job board that you want. If you're looking for a climate specific role, which all of you are, I would recommend using a climate job board because those keywords are going to be more populated in those jobs. So go to the job board. That is the first step. Second is you want to find your keywords. So in order to do this is you're going to find 30 job titles from that job board that you just went to. 30 job titles that interest you, and you're going to create a Google Sheet or an Excel or whatever you prefer, and you're going to put those 30 job titles into that sheet. Alrighty, step 3 is you're going to take those 30 words and you're going to go to wordclouds.com and you're going to paste those words into your word cloud. Your word cloud is going to populate a word cloud and then also a list, and it's going to show you which words are the most prominent in those 30 or 30 plus job titles. And you're going to take the top 3 to 7 words that apply to you, and you're going to make sure that those words are very, very, very present in your headline. So you can see on this image here, if this was my case, I would want to include software, Java, database. Get the gist of it? Cool. So the next step is you want to show your value. So those keywords are great, but it's just like your experience section of your resume. You just have the keywords and not that piece that goes alongside it. You're doing yourself a disservice. You have to show your keywords and then also those numbers that back those keywords up. So you can go on to the next slide. Here is an example of a great one. So this person is a data scientist, a climate tech. They're in climate tech, experienced in Tableau and Python, and they enhance machine learning prototypes by 38%. So the blue is the keywords, the black is their quantifiable impact statement. Awesome. Another example, software engineer, database developer, analytics manager at HubSpot, increased automation levels by 55%. This person chose to include HubSpot because HubSpot is a pretty well-known company that they thought brought value to their profile, which is totally fine to do, up to you. The next one we have is marketing director, B2B and B2C, climate storyteller, increased paid website traffic by 75%. So I think you get the gist of it here. Make sure you have your keywords and then your sales pitch. Alrighty, so what if you don't have those numbers? That's totally okay. You should follow this formula instead. You want to have your job title, your area of expertise 1 and 2, and then your company or your industry. So for the sake of time, we're going to skip over this, but again, I will share this profile or share this deck with you so that you can have these examples. All right, so what if you're entry level? Here's a great way for you to write your headline if you're entry level. You would do recent blank graduate with a focus in blank and blank and blank, and then your aspirational job titles. You don't actually have to have the job title to put it in your LinkedIn headline. This isn't your experience section. You're not saying that you have it. You're saying that you aspire to have it. So an example is recent finance graduate with a focus in financial analysis, reporting and auditing, financial reporting analyst. That's not their job. They want that job, so they put that there. Cool. All right, last but certainly not least is your skills tags. You have 50 opportunities on your LinkedIn to show what you are skilled in. Make sure you have them all filled out. This is another way to use your keywords. So pull from those same keywords that you had in your word cloud and include them here. Make sure you're not lying. If you don't, this should go without saying, but if you don't have the skill, don't put it on your skills. So then, yeah, you can also ask your network to endorse those skills. We'll make them more valid in the grand scheme of things. Awesome. So that is all that I have for all of you, but I would love to answer any questions that you may have. We have a few, so I will go through some of them and answer them. All right. So this person asked, Eric Burns says, if resumes are public / LinkedIn URL, then how would it make sense to update the resume for a specific job? So that's a great question. So your resume and your LinkedIn are different. So your resume needs to be updated for every job that you're applying for with that why statement. However, your resume needs to encapsulate all of that. So make sure your LinkedIn is kind of updated for all the job categories versus the job that you want to apply for. Does that make sense? And you can always update your resume too, or your LinkedIn, and see what's working for you. Awesome. All right, this person asked, what advice would you give a soon-to-be college grad entering the market? A lot of jobs require 3+ years, even for entry-level positions, which can be a bit disheartening, even without a year of internship or co-op experience. I think that's a great question, and I want to touch on the fact that this point in your job search is hard for everyone. No one graduates college and is instantly inundated with hundreds of different opportunities. It's a struggle for everyone, so you're not alone in that regard. But my advice to you would be to get that internship experience, to try to have a co-op experience. Really, it's a lot easier to get those internship positions than it is entry-level positions. And if you have something on your resume, that is going to be huge. And then also another note is, again, job descriptions are plain and simply wish lists. So even if you don't have all of the qualifications, still submit your resume and your application following all of those steps that I just provided. And you oftentimes will still get an interview. And an interview is a great opportunity to try to sell yourself. And it's a lot easier to sell yourself in that interview than it is over a piece of paper like a resume. Awesome. Another person asks, do you recommend putting details about why you're passionate about the company's mission on your resume, such as a summary statement at the top of your resume? Yes, 100%. I know a lot of people kind of go back and forth as to whether or not objective statements on your resume are wasted space. I strongly disagree with that. I think it's a great opportunity for you to show your passion and really who you are, because it's hard to do that on a resume. Your resume is often inundated with just experiences and hard technical skills, but having that overview section is critical for showing who you are as a person. And I think that really, really, really reigns true in the climate space, because climate companies do care about the mission and they want to know why you're connected to it. So definitely, I would definitely recommend doing that. Let's see some other questions. So this person asked, with a variety of different internships, academic experience, how do you keep it to one page? My one exception to the one-page suggestion, it's a suggestion, you don't have to follow it, is for people in academia. Oftentimes with research and all of that, it's impossible to keep it to one page. So that is totally acceptable to have longer than one page in academia. However, a great piece of advice for keeping it one page if you're not in academia is to do that career progression that I touched on. So for example, I am in marketing, and say I had 5 marketing jobs as a entry-level marketing position, and all of the job descriptions and the qualifications were really similar. I could just put that into one and say early level marketing, and then touch on what I did without having to have each individual company listed. That way you can save space for the more important things and making sure that you're catching the interviewer's eye rather than boring them with like 5 pages of the same marketing job over and over again. Okay. This person asked if I know any simple resume templates for folks to use. I do not off the top of my head, but I know that if you go to like Indeed or any of those job search services, they have a lot of templates that you can follow. Honestly, my favorite tip though is to find people that I'm inspired by. So someone in a role that I would love to have, I'll look on their LinkedIn profile, and oftentimes I'll have the resume linked and try to follow a template like that, just because I know it's worked for them. And especially in climate, it's hard to find people who have paved your unique path. So if you find someone in this industry, it's going to look a little bit different. So I would recommend finding those people. And then networking also really plays into that too. If you find someone and you like their resume or their LinkedIn, make sure you just send them a message and have a chat about that, because that will move mountains in terms of learning from them and trying to follow suit. Let's see. This question brings up a good point. Hello, I currently work in the climate and sustainability space as a project coordinator. I'm looking to incorporate tech. What are some relevant skills to study and learn? Again, I think that my answer to the last question really goes into play here. I would find people who are in that space and see and learn from them. Another thing to remember is, while climate is a new industry, climate is not really like the skills that are needed for climate jobs aren't that counterintuitive or that different from the skills that are required for a general project coordinator role. So rather than thinking you need to learn all of these new green skills, I would try to find ways to learn more about the industry and then apply those project coordinator skills that you have to the project coordinator in the climate space role. Awesome. Cool. So the next question that we have is how to transition from climate tech to climate tech from academia without prior industry experience. Again, I think that this question really plays into what I just said to the last one. It's kind of funny that all these questions answers are really similar, but I encourage you to think of it as not that different. Again, climate is a transition of the entire global economy. It's not just environmental jobs or scientific jobs. It's marketing jobs, it's business jobs, it's engineering jobs, and it's all of these new roles, but they're the same. So you have a climate focus, but the role is really similar. So if you don't have that hard industry experience, which most people don't have, don't view that as a weakness. Rather, try to upskill in other areas and learn as much about climate as you can, and then apply all that academia knowledge that you have to this space. That makes sense. Awesome. All right. Can I aim for senior roles? Can I aim for senior roles with a PhD and substantial experience in grad school research? Absolutely. I think my whole memo from this entire presentation was to don't sell yourself short and apply. Even if you're not the perfect fit, still apply, and encourage you to view your job search as art rather than a science. A lot of people think that they have to have all of these qualifications and all of this dialed down in order to even apply, but that's not true. So really learn how to sell yourself and apply for that job. Awesome. One person asked about suggestions for doing keyword research. I think I gave a few of those. So I'm going to dismiss that one. And then again, I'm going to share a link to this presentation with all of you. So if you want to go back through and reread the section on doing keyword research, definitely go for it. All right, this person says, most jobs I'm applying for still require cover letters, but it's hard to know how much of an impact they have. I fear spending too much time drafting my cover letter. That's a great point. Honestly, I don't like cover letters. At Climate People, we don't read cover letters. We don't expect cover letters. So I think this is very, very dependent on the company that you're applying for. I would argue that Megan, the recruiter that we posted her screenshots in the slide, she might want them because she said go that extra mile. So it's really, I know I'm not giving you a dead end answer here, but it's really up to you. I'd encourage you to do as much research on the company. And if it's a job that you absolutely want and they're requiring a cover letter, I would write one, because at the end of the day, quality over quantity is going to be key in this space. But then after you submit that application, make sure that it's not wasted time. So make sure you follow up, make sure you try to make connections at the company and try to get to know them, rather than just submitting the application and the cover letter and going on. So again, it's up to you. I don't love them, but I know that people do. So I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction by saying not to do it. Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and then we probably need to wrap it up. This person asks, are keywords the general words like cross-functional, communication skills, team player, or does a keyword have to refer to the hard skills such as Microsoft, SQL, data visualization, etc.? Both. Keywords are both. So if you think about it, if you're doing the keyword research in terms of the job titles, you're probably going to get a lot more of the hard skills. However, you can also do the same thing by taking the entire job description, copy and pasting it into the word cloud and pulling those words. And then you're oftentimes going to get a lot more soft skills. So no, keywords can be both. If you remember some of those examples, they were like climate tech leader, storyteller, and then it had like B2B and B2C. So to answer your question, no, it's going to have to be both of those. Awesome. So I think that is going to have to be a wrap. I know we have a lot more questions. I can go through those later and try to create a blog post that answers all those questions because I do think that they are really good. But thank you again for joining me today. I really hope that I could have provided some guidance to your job search and that you leave today feeling energized and optimistic about your job search going forward. You can find me at Natalie@climatepeople.com, on all social at Climate People. And then, of course, our website is climatepeople.com. Again, I will share out the link to this presentation, but then also I want to share out a few resources like our survey that we talked about, and then where you can submit your application and your resume. Thank you again. I hope you'll have a great Friday.